Welcome to The Explainer, where we turn complexity into clarity. Today, we're going to cut through all that confusing static in the world of health advice to find the real evidence-based signal. So let's just jump right into it with a question that drives so many of us absolutely crazy. You're doing all the right things, right? You're eating clean, you're exercising, but that stubborn belly fat just refuses to leave. It's a super common story, and it often has a hidden character playing a major role. And that hidden character, you've probably heard it called the cortisol belly. I mean, the term is all over social media and in health articles. But what's the real science behind this puzzle? Let's break it down. Okay, so at its very core, this is all about cortisol. That's your body's main stress hormone. And when you're under constant chronic stress, your cortisol levels can get stuck on high. That's a signal to your body to store fat. And its favorite place to store it? You guessed it, right around your midsection, where it becomes what we call visceral fat, packed in around your vital organs. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because cortisol creates a perfect storm for gaining weight. It's not just doing one thing. It actually triggers cravings for those comfort foods, high-fat, high-sugar stuff. It raises your blood sugar, which promotes more fat storage, and it totally wrecks your sleep. And guess what poor sleep does? It raises cortisol even more. So you get stuck in this vicious cycle that's so tough to break with just diet and exercise. This whole cortisol belly problem is a perfect example of where health hype and reality can get really, really blurry. We are just bombarded with advice all the time. So to understand why, let's zoom out for a second and look at the two main places all this advice actually comes from. On one side, you have conventional medicine, what you get at your doctor's office. It's built on methods that have been proven safe and effective through all sorts of rigorous scientific trials. And on the other side, you have this huge world of complementary and alternative medicine, or CAM for short. And this is a massive category. It includes everything from ancient practices like acupuncture to things like herbal remedies and meditation. But here's the thing. It's not always an either-or fight. The National Institutes of Health has pointed out that a lot of people are actually creating their own personalized approach, blending the best of both of these worlds. This is what's often called integrative medicine. So with all of this information just swirling around, from conventional sources, from alternative sources, how are we supposed to find the signal? How do we figure out what actually works for something like stubborn belly fat, and what is just noise? The answer is a framework called evidence-based medicine. It's not about tradition or just going with a gut feeling. It's about using the best, most current research out there to make health decisions. You can think of it as our filter for turning all that information into knowledge we can actually rely on. And this is just so crucial to understand. Not all evidence is created equal. Way down at the bottom of this pyramid, you have anecdotes and personal stories. My cousin tried this special tea and their belly fat just melted away. As you move up the pyramid, the evidence gets way, way stronger, until you get to the absolute gold standard at the top: randomized controlled trials and these huge reviews that combine the results of many high-quality studies. And we can apply this same evidence-based thinking to those CAM therapies too. I mean, just take a look at this table of common herbal remedies. The research shows us not just what they're used for, like echinacea for colds or St. John's wort for mild depression, but it also tells us about their potential side effects. See, this is how we move from just hype to making a truly informed decision. But wait a minute. What if we have perfect, top-of-the-pyramid evidence about how to manage stress and cortisol, but people still can't use it? Well, there's another huge piece to this puzzle: communication. This is where a concept called health literacy comes in. And it's not just about being able to read. It's about being able to understand and use health information. And the research here is pretty shocking. Studies show that most health information isn't actually understood by the very people it's designed for. For a second, just take a look at this sentence. For a lot of people, trying to read complex medical advice about cortisol or their metabolism feels exactly like this. It's just a jumble of confusing words that doesn't help you take clear action. It's pure noise. But then, when we unscramble it, when we use clear, simple language, the message becomes powerful. All of a sudden, that noise becomes a signal you can actually act on. And that is the whole goal of good health communication. Okay, so now we have our framework, right? Find the best evidence and communicate it clearly. So let's bring all of this back to our original problem and build a practical, no-hype toolkit for that stubborn cortisol belly. All right, first things first, let's use our evidence filter to clear out all the noise. The science is crystal clear. You can't spot reduce fat from just your belly. It's impossible. And those cortisol detox diets, the funny thing is, they're often so restrictive, they can actually raise your stress and cortisol levels. And supplements, they're not a magic bullet. They just can't replace the real work. So if that's the noise, then what's the real scientific signal? Well, it all points to a holistic strategy. It's about managing the root cause, which is stress, through proven techniques like meditation or even just spending time out in nature. It's about prioritizing sleep to get your hormones in balance. And it's about making smart, balanced choices with exercise and nutrition, not going for extreme measures. Now, I want to make sure I did a good job explaining all of this. There's this technique called a teach back. So based on everything we've covered, what are, say, 3 evidence-based strategies that you remember? 3 things that can really make a difference. It could be about stress, sleep, diet, whatever comes to mind. And as you're thinking about that, just remember that some of the most effective evidence-based tools for managing stress, which is the main driver of cortisol, are things like deep breathing, meditation, and massage. These are super popular therapies, and they have strong scientific backing for reducing stress. As we look ahead to 2025 and beyond, the world of health and wellness is, well, it's only going to get more complex. It's going to be filled with even more noise, but also new signals. I mean, we're already seeing this explosion of powerful new weight management drugs and the rise of AI-driven personalized nutrition plans. Each one of these brings incredible promise, for sure, but also a whole new wave of hype that we're going to need to navigate with the exact tools we've been talking about today. So, I'll leave you with this. Now that you have this toolkit for thinking about evidence and communication, you are equipped to be your own fact checker. So the next time you see a new health trend pop up, what's the first question you're going to ask yourself to separate what's real from what's just hype?